special session of the Indian Parliament began in New Delhi today. The 5-day session was announced in a surprise move by the government last month. The agenda released so far, it mentions a discussion on the 75 years of Indian Parliament as the lawmakers bid farewell to the old Parliament building. Sessions and sittings henceforth will be held in the new building inaugurated earlier this year. 8 bills in the session, including one that amends the terms of service of election commissioners, will also be tabled. Israeli demonstrators continue to mount pressure on Prime Minister Netanyahu over the judicial overhaul. Wearing white to mark the Jewish New Year, people chanted slogans against Prime Minister Netanyahu while also waving the Israeli flag. Well, thousands of people rallied the streets of Tel Aviv for the 37th week ahead of the Prime Minister's U.S. visit. The Prime Minister is due to meet U.S. President Joe Biden at the sidelines of the UN General Assembly meeting, which is all set to take place in New York. The U.S. President has also voiced concerns over Israel's judicial overhaul. The protest organizers have said that they will stage more demonstrations around the airport ahead of Prime Minister Netanyahu's departure. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky commended soldiers for recapturing an eastern village on the southern flank of Bakhmut. Kiev's military regained control over the area after it lost the region to Russian aggression in May. Well, the area is the same region as another village that Ukraine restored control over earlier this week. However, both settlements are substantially destroyed in months of fighting over Bakhmut between the Ukrainian and the Russian forces. China's foreign minister and top diplomat Wang Yi begins his 4-day trip to Russia. At the course of the visit, Beijing and Moscow are expected to pledge deeper mutual political trust. Well, this comes at the heels of a possible landmark visit by Russian President Vladimir Putin to Beijing in October this year. While China's Wang Yi is also scheduled to meet Russia's Security Council Secretary for annual security talks. He is also looking to lay the groundwork for Putin's visit to the Chinese capital for the Third Belt and Road Forum. Previously, Putin attended China's first 2 Belt and Road Forums, that is in 2017 and 2019. However, he is not known to have travelled abroad after the International Criminal Court, which issued a warrant against him for illegally deporting Ukrainian children. U.S. President Joe Biden responded to questions around House Republican launching an impeachment inquiry against him with a simple, lots of luck. Republicans say that they have found a culture of corruption around the business activities. Hunter Biden that justifies a probe. Well, they have not released evidence of wrongdoing by the president, and the White House says that the probe is a political stunt that is not backed by facts at all. Well, the probe could lead to an impeachment vote by the Republican-controlled House, but Biden would not be removed from office unless 2/3 of the Democratic-controlled Senate votes to convict. Hundreds of Peruvians took to the streets of Lima over the weekend to protest against President Dina Boluarte's government and also the National Congress. Well, the protest involved dozens of social organizations, trade unions and political parties. Well, they marched under the banner, and I'm quoting here, March for Democracy. Organizers claim that the country's National Congress is attempting to take over the National Board of Justice, an institution in charge of appointing and removing judges. The opposition alleges that Peru lost the balance of power since part of the left and the right lawmakers agreed to support President Dina Boluarte. Taiwan's defense ministry has urged China to stop destructive and unilateral military action. Taiwan has reported a sharp rise in Chinese military activities near the island and has also warned against growing regional tension as a consequence. China, which views democratically governed Taiwan as its very own, has regularly carried out military drills around the island this year. While the authorities in Taiwan claim to have detected some 103 Chinese warplanes over its waters, a number which the Foreign Office declared as a recent high. Moreover, the Chinese fighter jets crossed the median line of Taiwan Strait over and over in the past 24 hours. The line had served as an unofficial barrier between the two sides until China began regularly crossing it a year ago. Liberia's opposition leader has launched his election campaign ahead of the polls scheduled for October, while thousands gathered for the campaign in the capital city, while the upcoming elections are set to test the popularity of ex-football star, that is after chaotic first term. While people present outside raised concerns over the president's failure to improve living standards or stamp out corruption in the West African country. Moreover, downturns in prices of commodities and devastating Ebola outbreak and a series of scandals have set the president back. Last year, the US imposed sanctions on president's administration over charges of corruption and misappropriation of state assets. EU chief Ursula von der Leyen has pledged action to help Italy's crisis-hit island of Lampedusa. This after the island was left struggling to cope with an influx of migrants. The EU chief has also promised a 10-point EU action plan to help Italy deal with the situation. Meanwhile, the migrant crisis is only getting worse in the European nation. At least 126,000 migrants have arrived in Italy so far this year. The number is almost double the figure by the same date in 2022. In an effort to relieve pressure on Italy, von der Leyen set out a 10-point action plan. The plan includes using the European Union's external borders agency called Frontex. It will only help to identify migrants arriving in Italy and repatriate those who are not eligible for asylum. Frontex will also help in sea and aerial surveillance of migrant boats and help crack down on the traffickers in the area. At least 400 people were rescued from distressed boats in the Mediterranean Sea amid the recent surge in migrant arrival to Italy. As per the Italian Coast Guard, among the rescued were 205 children. While Italy's Lampedusa has borne the brunt of the latest migrant wave. The number of asylum seekers surpassed the island's permanent population. This as the migrant influx in Italy has hit a record high. Troubled by the staggering flow of migrants, protests have broken out across the island. The migrant crisis on the US-Mexico border continues to escalate. Dozens of migrants camped on the banks of the Rio Grande on the Mexico-US border, while the migrants alleged that Texas National Guard prevented them from handing themselves over to the border patrol agents. People were attempting to cross the border with their families and children amidst fear of extreme hunger. The Mexico-United States border was the world's most dangerous land route for migrants in 2022. Nearly 700 died or went missing. according to the UN Migration Agency, that is. The Indian Space Research Organization's Aditya L1 has commenced collecting scientific data. The sensors of the STEPS instrument have begun measuring the suprathermal and energetic ions and electrons as well. The sensors have been activated at a distance greater than 50,000 kilometers from the Earth. Well, this data helps scientists analyze the behavior of the particles surrounding variations in the energetic particle environment, which was collected by the instrument. China has successfully launched another satellite. A remote sensing satellite was launched over the weekend from the Xi'an Satellite Center. Well, the satellite center lies in China's southwest. A Long March 2D rocket launched the satellite WION 39 on Sunday. Well, this was the 488th mission undertaken by China's Long March rocket series. International aid continued to pour into Libya following devastating floods in the country's east that claimed more than 11,000 lives. The first of the Saudi relief planes arrived at the international airport in Libya over the weekend to provide food and shelter aid for those affected by the devastating floods there. While this coincided with the arrival of an Iraqi plane, the second one in few days, carrying logistical equipment for search and rescue operations. Well, the Libyan authorities limited access to Derna, the worst-hit city, to make it easier for searchers to dig through the mud and hollowed-out buildings, while more than 10,000 people are still missing and presumed dead. Storm Lee continues to bring high winds, rough surf and torrential rains to a large swathe of New England and maritime Canada, toppling trees, swamping coastlines and cutting power to tens of thousands. Many residents ventured to Coast Guard Beach there to watch the heavy surf and the waves there as well. While the storm made landfall in Canada at near hurricane strength, it gradually weakened as it moved into New Brunswick and the Gulf of St. Lawrence. Thousands of demonstrators flocked the streets of Manhattan, demanding world leaders to pivot away from using fossil fuels. While the public anger comes at the heels of the UNGA session, which is scheduled to kick off tomorrow. The demonstrators urged US President Joe Biden to stop the approval of new oil and gas projects. They also expect the Biden administration to phase out current climate laws and declare a climate emergency with larger executive powers. The demonstrators also suggested that their support for President Biden in 2024 would depend on more aggressive climate action in the United States of America. However, none of the Republican candidates running to replace the Biden administration have trumpeted slashing these emissions. In fact, several want to encourage more oil and gas drilling. Germany's last-generation climate demonstrators sprayed orange paint onto Berlin's gate to press for more urgent climate action. The member demonstrators used fire extinguishers filled with paint to spray all 6 columns of the popular landmark in Germany's capital. The group's priorities include getting Germany to stop using all fossil fuels by 2030. Well, they're also aiming to get the government to deploy short-term measures, including a general speed limit on highways to cut emissions more quickly. South Korean internet service provider SK Broadband and global streaming powerhouse Netflix have put an end to their ongoing legal disputes In lieu of litigation, both industry giants have announced a strategic partnership, marking a major turning point in their relationship. While this partnership signifies a departure from the long-standing disagreement regarding network traffic costs, with both the companies choosing to prioritize mutual growth and innovation by officially withdrawing their lawsuits. SK Broadband and Netflix are signaling a shift to improving services for the global customer base. In Thailand, rice farmers are facing a multifaceted crisis. Despite surging global rice prices due to India's export restrictions, the country's rice cultivation has decreased by 14.5% in the month of August, marking a continuing trend since 2020. This crisis is driven by unsustainable debt, lack of innovation and climate change pressures, which are squeezing farmers despite major government subsidies. The looming water shortage has only exacerbated by the El Nino weather patterns, further threatening rice production, impacting millions of consumers globally. The government is now under pressure to find solutions and revive the important rice industry in Thailand. Well, in a bid to raise major capital, 3 Chinese tech firms have embarked on Hong Kong initial public offerings. Leading the packs is AI software company Beijing Fourth Paradigm, seeking to secure up to $144 million by selling 18.4 million shares. 70.6% of the IPO is already subscribed to by 3 cornerstone investors, with New China Capital Management at the helm. Notably, Fourth Paradigm found itself on the US entity list this year, limiting its access to US technology. Meanwhile, Chinese cloud hospital platform NeoSoft aims to raise between $81 million and $101 million. Shares of China's Evergrande group plummeted by 25% on Monday, following the detention of staff at its wealth management unit. This development hints at a new investigation, further compounding the challenges facing the world's most indebted property developer. Evergrande has been a focal point of the crisis in China's real estate sector since late 2021. Marked by defaults that have gone through global markets, the company's stock trading resumed recently after a 17-month suspension. Shenzhen police confirmed the detention of individuals from Evergrande's financial wealth management division, although details on charges and the number of detainees remain undisclosed.